The plague pastor and his brainwashed flock held their usual church service again last Sunday. The planned roadside protest against his illegal activities did not take place. This was to ensure that Aylmer's law-abiding citizens were not breaking the lockdown protocols. There were calls to the police about the plague church breaking the current requirements, but there was no huge public outcry. As a result, in that lack of public scrutiny, it appears the police failed in their sworn duties yet again. The plague pastor is so confident in his abilities to supersede our laws that he publishes his crimes in video format on YouTube, and still there seems to be no legal repercussions for him. We used to wonder at that anomaly, but it has now become apparent why he sees himself above the law. There seems to be some kind of a disconnect between Aylmer Police Services and the rule of law they have sworn to uphold. The police have openly stated they will not enforce the lockdown rules unless they receive multiple calls from Aylmer's citizens. The plague pastor had originally announced that policy during one of his interviews prior to the police releasing it. That does make us wonder, do they compare notes before speaking to the press? Or was the decision mutually agreed upon in advance? Either way, the legal consequences only seem to exist when there is a video posted that causes public outcry. Only then do charges follow. We do not blame the Aylmer police officers, whom are required to follow the orders of their Chary chief and an efficacious police services board. We are not the only ones to openly speak on this subject. Multiple individuals, including local elected officials, have openly criticized and questioned the lack of Aylmer's police ability to enforce our laws. Their ineffectiveness has become common knowledge and a conversational topic in recent months. Aylmer's citizens are sharing their experiences and knowledge of events like never before. The result is incompetence at best, or corruption at worst. Either way, the citizens of Aylmer are angry, and every time the police defer to the plague pastor, we get more frustrated. The situation could have been completely avoided and is so easily resolved. The Chary chief can stop giving the plague pastor free rein to disregard our laws. The deputy mayor of Aylmer has also gained our notice. She is the chair of the Police Services Board. She would rather complain to the local newspaper about those questioning this issue than do her job. We encourage all our viewers to contact her and express your dissatisfaction about her inability to uphold her duties as an elected official and current chair of the Aylmer Police Services Board. The illegal activities of the plague pastor and his followers have been dominating our town for months. The police have been informed and aware of the unlawful activities throughout this time. At the beginning, our Chary chief seemed to be doing his sworn duty. Yet weeks passed that the plague pastor and his congregants disregarded our laws. The only response from the Chary chief was empty threats, then a story regarding an investigation, and then silence. Time passed and the plague pastor grew hungry for more power. Aylmer's police and our laws had not been much of a deterrent to his ambitions. Yet he and his followers are only a couple hundred people. There are just not enough of them. Luckily for him, the plague rats and many other fanatical groups were joining forces. Not one of these groups can gain enough followers to buy into whatever their demented beliefs are to cause chaos, but together they can invade small towns and cities and overwhelm them with their herd of the unbalanced and unhinged. All while sharing COVID-19 amongst themselves and our communities. There were multiple laws broken and regulations disregarded during Aylmer's rally. Everything from the freedom protesters openly urinating in our streets, harassing and assaulting our citizens, holding an unscheduled and unlawful parade, with police escort at that. Usually law enforcement officials do not openly assist the criminals. Yet this has become the newest normal for Aylmer. Where was our Chary chief during this fuss? Not anywhere in Aylmer. Then the rally was over and the out-of-town crazies returned to their homes to await their invasion of whichever unfortunate town or city was next on their hit list. What information or assurances did our Chary chief offer us? None. His silence was his only response. Yet the unlawful acts of the plague pastor and his congregants continued. The police were called. For at least some of them. Yet nothing happened. Again. It was now obvious the police were unwilling to deal with the lawbreakers. Our grocery stores were forced to hire outside security services to prevent the illegal activities as the rules were completely and openly disregarded. How pathetic must one be to create the need for such a thing? One expects security at an airport not when going to purchase milk and bread. Then other cities and towns began charging the rally organizers. Aylmer was the first place invaded, yet it was one of the last to lay charges. And not one of those charges were laid at the plague pastor's feet. What statements did our Chary chief release at that time? None, of course. His silence continued to dominate. Finally we stopped waiting for the Chary chief to do his job and released our first video. Lo and behold, our Chary chief miraculously materialized long enough to grant an interview about his investigation of our video. He then provided police protection to the plague pastor for weeks. Multiple sightings of police vehicles parked in the vicinity of the plague pastor's home prompted citizens to call and question this action. The Chary chief openly lied to Aylmer's citizens. But the protection was withdrawn as a result. We will take what wins we can. Then the plague pastor contracted COVID-19. Even his 2 days on oxygen in the hospital did not change his stance or decrease his ignorance. Then the roadside protests began. And with that there was pictures and videos proving the plague pastor's unlawful activities. After multiple calls from the public, the police showed up and laid a charge. Then the sycophant snake slithered himself into more charges by having his illegal attempts at police intimidation recorded on video. Then the first charge was laid to the Church of God Restoration. The plague pastor held an impromptu protest in honor of the summons. There was also a video posted showing the large mob of unmasked congregants. Then the plague pastor received his well-earned summons for the organization of that mob. We do have our doubts that he would have been charged if those videos were not publicly posted. Mostly because of the obvious preferential treatment from our Chary chief towards these zealots and the events that have transpired since then. The last roadside protest that was held resulted in the sycophant snake swerving a GMC Yukon XL towards a lone protester on the side of the road. He then proceeded to follow the protest's organizer to her home before he returned to the protest and made a second attempt at intimidation by swerving at that lone protester yet again. The sycophant snake was identified to the police as the driver of the vehicle prior to all of these events. He and his wife had just returned from vacationing in Florida the day prior. This was reported to the police on site as they were obviously not self-isolating as was currently legally required. He was also in breach of his conditional release while awaiting his court dates. The police did nothing. Again. The police were called regarding both subsequent incidents. One occurrence was caught on video and the other had witnesses. The police did nothing. Again. We are now understanding why these zealots believe they are above the law. Aylmer Police Services keeps putting them there. We encourage our viewers to do their own research into these events. If you find yourselves sharing in our dissatisfaction with the Chary chief, feel free to sign the online petition for his resignation. Your location is not important. Enough Aylmer citizens have already signed it to make it viable. No one should be placed above the law, especially not the leader of a known cult. And not by a single Chary chief whom is not even from here. We have heard a rumor that the out-of-town crazies have been summoned back to Aylmer by the plague pastor for another attempt at oppressing our citizens. We shall see if this is true eventually. Perhaps the plague pastor has not yet comprehended that when his renter-at pack lunatics return to their burrows, Aylmer's citizens still remain here. We are one. We are all. We are always watching.